Those churches that have people going forward for the ordained ministry are effectively churches where people are saying, I want to commit my life to what this church teaches. Now we have in this congregation rather more than you would ever imagine who either are seeking to transfer their clergy credentials from one church to MCC, or they are seeking to become ordained within metropolitan community churches. And I will tell you right now that they understand that this here is not an easy process. This is not just taking a few evening classes and standing up at the front and somebody tells you, oh, you're ordained. You can call yourself reverend. This means going back to college for many, spending years getting master's degrees. It means going to Rev M, having a battery of psychological tests over 2 days solid. It means jumping through numerous hoops. It means spending lots of money. And yet we have 8 people in this church who are seeking to do that. And we're going to stand up for you. You can sit down, I won't humiliate you any further. This is something that I am finding extremely sobering and humbling. Because me as pastor, I realize that having any hand in prospering, producing the next generation of pastors and clergy is an awesome responsibility. When I was in the Church of England, my dear Director of Diocesan Ordinands, as they called him, because everyone has to have a grand title in the Church of England. He said, me, I never had one. I was a curate, that's not grand. His approach was, we'll ignore them, and if they're keen enough, they'll do all the work necessary. But I suspect that I have a greater responsibility for that, because once people actually go forward for the ordination conference, which is called Rev M, the Readiness to Enter the Vocational Ministry Conference, then they are in care, which means that I'm going to have a meet with them once a week for an hour. There's 8 of them. Wow. That's a day taken up if they all go through. Thankfully, they won't all be going through at the same time. And a lot can happen between then and now. But there's one thing I would like you to pray about. Because the church is also going to be establishing a fund, so that people who would like to prosper the ordained ministry, so that our clergy shortage is attended to, and all those churches that we are founding at extraordinary speed all around the world. You know, there's 3 of them or 4 of them cropped up in the last year. You know, we now have churches in Zambia and Uganda and Singapore and the Ukraine, which we didn't have previously. We need trained clergy. And one of the most extraordinary things which you could do as members and attendees and as Christians is to give of your resources so that others can give of theirs. It's about $2,000 just to get through the opening process. MCC doesn't have the money to pay for this. It has to come from the individual churches. We don't have the resources. You are our resources. So please, as you go forward from this point, think about your own journey and don't put an upper limit on where that journey may lead you. Don't have any red lines that cannot be crossed. Don't have any places to which you know you're never going to go. Because if you'd said to me 6 years ago I'd end up pastoring a church in New Orleans, I would have told you were an idiot. I think you must be off your head. If you would have told me that I would be standing at the front of a church saying how wonderful our new praise team is, I would be saying that you were off your head. And there was no way on God's earth I was going to listen to such blasphemous nonsense. But here I am. So please, as we go forward from here, think deeply, deeply about your journey. Because there are no limits on where it will take you. There are no limits on what you may be asked to give up. There are no limits on the blessings which you may be asked to receive. And both of those are at times equally difficult to deal with.